Okay, Rabbi, once again, thank you for coming back. I won't take anything for granted here. Uncle Yanko, okay? Everything all right? Baruch Hashem. People you should know always ask about you. A lot of people care about you, you should know.
They asked for me tonight for a special reason.
That's right. They don't need a special reason. Okay. I'm sure you've heard this before, but I'm going to repeat it just to bring out the point that there was a person, he felt that he was an inspiring actor. He wanted very, very much to be an actor. And he went to Hollywood, and he auditioned, and he applied, and he begged, and he went with Protexia, and he did everything he could. But he could not land an agent to try to get him a job. And he was even offering to pay to get a part, but he was just about to give up. And just then, I don't know, he must have picked up the copy of the Hollywood Torah Times or something. And in the back, he saw a classified ad for an actor. No. So he goes, and he wasn't very happy with the role. The role that they gave him was, the zoo was looking for a monkey, and they couldn't find any monkey, and monkeys are always the very, very big attraction in the zoo. And they, said, you put on a monkey suit, and they act like a monkey, minimum wage. But at least he could save face to some degree. He can come home and say that he got an acting job, and even got paid for it. So he took the job, and the first day he was terribly embarrassed, and they opened up the cage. But at the end of the night scene, you get into it. There's a saying in Yiddish, "Das Appetit kommt mit dem Essen." The appetite comes with eating. Once you start acting, and everyone was cheering when he was going for the bananas and swinging from branch to branch, so he was getting more into it, and somehow he felt his self-esteem slowly was trying to inch its way up, very slowly, but was getting there. And then he was learning more and more at night. He read about monkeys, and he got more into the act. And once there was a huge crowd, and they were all cheering for him, and he was so excited, jumping and cheering and swinging all around, that he overswung, and he went through the roof, and he landed into the cage with the tiger. And the tiger started charging toward him, and he thought maybe it was a good time to do tshuva, and he yelled out, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And the tiger answered, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusai Li'olam Vayed. And the lion in the next cage said, if the two you don't stop it, would all three lose our job, okay? So cut it out. Come on. It's hard to get parnasa these days. What are you doing? A lot of people out there in this world who are, I don't know if we're wearing necessarily monkey suits, but we're wearing who we are. We're in costumes. We don't have the courage to be who we are. We try to be someone else. And sometimes we fall into whole chaburas that way. They say that there was a man in wherever, I don't want to say which section, but he decided that he's going to max out on all his credit cards, borrow money from every gemach in town, and he's going to build this huge facade in front of his house to make it look like a real rich house, and marble and everything. And his wife said, what are we doing? We don't even have this money. You're borrowing from mortgaging and remortgaging and refinancing. He says, let the oilam think we're rich. And what are we going to gain by the oilam thinking we're rich? The oilam is going to think we're rich, and then we're going to get a new, we're going to get a rich mechutin, We got a rich mechutin, we'll do rich shidduchim with our kids. And he went and he took a lease on a car that he had no idea how he was going to pay. And he had so many chayvahs, so many foreclosure notices. He could have wallpapered the Empire State Building with his foreclosure notices and his credit and his collection agencies. And he keeps borrowing money only to get a rich mechutin. Let it go out there that, they'll see the kind of clothes that he has, the kind of car that he has, the way his family is dressed. And we're going to see that everybody is rich. It's going to be so gewaldig. And it worked. It worked at the end. They did a gewaldige rich shidduch. They said, now you see, now our son-in-law, our son is going to be supported for the rest of his life. It's going to be gewaldig. There was only one problem. They found out that his mechutin did the same thing he did. Neither of them had it. Not only did not have any money, but they had chayvus over their head because each one wanted a rich mechutin. Each one had to have that. This is something that we do in life. It's the same story really as the lion and the tiger and the monkey, and it's the same story as many of us. We don't want to come to terms with who we are, and we try to be someone that we're not. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is not interested in us being someone that we are not. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to be who we are. 99% of the truth, the Vel says, is still 100% lie. Chaysamay Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emes. The Rebbeinu Shalom's seal is the truth. So the Koska says a Mari Dekatif of art. Chaysamay Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emes. Kadosh Baruch Hu's seal is emes. You can't forge a Kadosh Baruch Hu seal, because if you forge it, it's not emes. So it's there's no way, it can't be anything different. So someone told me a story. This person went to a baseball game, obviously when baseball season was still going. See, I know that. It's over. And he said there were some kids there. They didn't look good. They had payas, krazel to payas, they tucked it under their baseball cap. You know what I mean? They kind of wrapped up their beard in the turtleneck shirt, and they're wearing Yankee caps. And they can tell English is not their first language, Yiddish is their language. There are certain names that we give for such people, which I don't think is proper, so I will not repeat it, but you get the idea. So he said he went over to 3 of these kids afterwards, and they were 7 people, and he wanted to daven mincha. I'm not saying this was the place to daven mincha, or that the first guy should have been there also. So he says to one of them that maybe you want to be mashlim the minyan. So he looks at him. This guy with his payas bulging out of his cap, and the beard around. He goes, "How did you know I'm Jewish?" I know you're Jewish. What do you think? You put the cap on? You're gonna? He's Jewish. What do you mean? How did I know you're Jewish? So that story really cut in, because it's sad. It's sad. Why are you trying to be someone who you're not, when you don't even know who you are, when you don't even know the beauty of who you are? And if you had some difficult experiences in terms of your culture, who you are, so work it out. Don't try to be someone who you're not. It's not going to go away. Whatever the Kadosh Baruch Hu sent you down to this world for is not going to go away by you putting on the cap. So, just as I'm finished with this story, as Ashgacha Pratis would have it, I come home. No, I'm not going to tell you that A-Rod was sitting on my recliner, but I come home, and I get a letter. And I get a letter from someone, and I asked a few people around, and there's this Yid in Chicago who is a fabulous mechanech, a wonderful, wonderful mechanech. His name is Daniel Harris, Rabbi Harris. And I asked some people around, they said it's tzaddik of a person, and he has this great idea. He takes kids that, he takes a baseball, and he says, how would you like to get this baseball signed by a superstar? And the kid is thinking, and he shows him his baseball that he has signed from Willie Mays and from, the old Dor HaYoshan, Ziknei Dor HaYoshan. And the kid is already thinking, I don't know who he's thinking. I can tell you the names of the 69 Mets. I can't really tell you any contemporary players. But the kid is already thinking, so he goes, he takes the kids then, and he has Rosh Yeshivas sign the baseball. I would mention the names of the Rosh Yeshivas that he has signing this baseball. I don't know they would want me to know, but the real big ones. We're talking here the Deis by the Gudda Convention and the Torah Masari Convention. So he calls me up, and he tells me the story. He says, I'm trying to get Gedolim to sign the baseball. He says, how would you like to join or sign the baseball? So I said, I'm not sure which is a bigger misrepresentation, me being a gadol or a baseball player. I think both are equally as far off from the truth as... He said, just all I want you to do is sign the baseball. I said, I'll sign, just don't ask me to pitch, you know what I mean? He said that I once went to visit a Yid in a nursing home, so he told me about a Zayd of his that always was a tremendous action. This is the story that he said, that you can take it or leave it, buy it or sell it. So his Zayd or his Elta Zayd or something, this was his story that he once walked up to some major, banged on the door by spring training, and they came, what do you want? He says, I could strike out Ty Cobb on 3 pitches, he said. And who are you? You want to see? And he's screaming and yelling every single day. So you know what I mean? He's yelled so much. So they gave him a uniform, and he got up there, and the Ty Cobb came out, and he threw 1 pitch, and the guy hit the ball I don't know, further like 6 cities down, you know. It went from New York to Las Vegas. And then he threw another pitch, and the guy, you know, it went right through, it blew up the dust on the ground, you know, ripped the tunnel right through underneath Lake Erie. And he hit another pitch, and it went, you know, flew to the moon. So they went to him and they said, huh? So he walks out, he goes, well, do you see now that what you said is ridiculous? He goes, I don't believe that was Ty Cobb, he says. Who says that was him? Maybe that was someone else, you know, he says. He still believes that, he says. So I said, you know, when you get into the world of fantasy, I said, where do I come to sign the baseball? I'm not in the Gedolim category, I'm not in the baseball player category. He said, well, you know, he said, you know, some kids listen to your stories. Came to mind that the Chiddushei Rim, I think it was the Avni Nezer, he was the son-in-law of the Kotzker Rebbe, I think in the second Zivik, not sure. Anyway, he came to the Kotzker Rebbe, said he has a shaila. He says that it was a sister or his daughter, I'm not sure, the Kotzker Rebbe's sister. She married me because she thinks I'm a tzaddik. And I know the truth, I'm not a tzaddik. So the Kotzker Rebbe, in typically Kotzk style, told him, he said, let me tell you something. He said, what does it mean she thinks you're a tzaddik? She needs you to be a tzaddik? She needs people to say she's married to the tzaddik. So there's other people that think you're a tzaddik. So that's, for her, that's good. It's not a problem. You're talking out a tzaddik. It's okay, you know. It says. So the guy told me the same thing. I know you don't belong here, but, you know, as long as it fits the criteria of maybe some people, so fine, so sign the baseball. But I got to tell you that I was just, you know, they say once they called somebody up by a big Shabbaton or something. They said, and now, Harav, Goyen, you know, Rav so-and-so, HaKoyen. So he turns to the MC, he goes, I'm not a Kohen. He goes, and the Rav Goyen doesn't bother you, you know what I mean? Like pink the Kohen you're worried about, you know, like, what's your problem anyway? Anyway, so I told him I'm not a baseball player, and I'm not a Kohen, I'm not a Goyen, so much of my amazing anivas. But I looked at it, I looked at the list of people that signed these baseballs, and I was totally amazed. I said, here are, mamish, like, again, I would say their names, I don't know if they would be masking. But here, like the biggest Rosh Hashivas that say, wait a second, if there is a kid that somehow is going to connect the passion of his baseball to the passion of why he's down here in this world, I am willing to sign this, even though this is going to be in some showcase someplace, and who knows who's going to see it. I don't care, because my job is to bring people close to the Torah, to take their Kina Taiva V'Kavod, and not to destroy it, but to aim it in the right direction, that the Kina should be Kina Safrim, and the Taiva should be to take, you know, the Dirshu Shas, and the entire Shas, and the Taiva should be another Blat Gemara, another Blat Gemara. That, you can't take the Taivas, and you can't take Kina, and you can't take human emotions and make it non-exist. But you can convert it to the right thing, and here you have a Kalal Yisrael that's willing to do it. To me, it was a very moving experience. Now, I don't have a computer at home, but for whatever reason I needed an email address for something, and someone like made one for me. So I'm watching him, and he's like punching in. I see there's a question that comes up on his thing as he's making the email address, and it says, "Prove you're not a robot." You ever saw that? So I'm saying, what is that? He says, well, sometimes, you know, they have these automated things. They make like 10,000 email addresses with different things. They want to know they're dealing with an individual. So they ask you a bunch of questions to prove you're not a robot. How do we prove to Hashem that we're not a robot? How do we prove to Hashem that we're not just doing things because it's the in thing to do? How do we prove to Hashem that the way we're dressed is not because our neighbor is dressed that way, but because we really believe in something? And the way you prove it is when you're willing to stand up to it when it's not popular. The way you prove it is when you have a Rosh Hashiva that's willing to sign a baseball. Because he says, this is what the Rebbe wants me to do, to be Makar of Yiddish Kinder. I'm willing to do it. And that shows that you're real. That shows that you're emes. That shows you're taking the monkey suit off. There was a story once, we've mentioned this before, the Chiddushei Rim was going to Kusk for Shabbos, and they were running late, and the guy was hitting the horses and hitting the horses and hitting the horses real hard. And it looks like he pushed the horses too much, and they weren't up to it, and came right before Shabbos, and the horse collapsed and died. And the Balagala was ice mensch. He felt horrible. He said, it's my whole parnasa. I'm not going to have a way of making money. What's going to happen now? So the Chiddushei Rim said, tell him he shouldn't worry. We'll get him a new horse. But he just couldn't take it. He was so petrified that he died. The Balagala passed away. So the Chiddushei Rim said he came up, and he had quite a rap sheet. Didn't know what to do with him. But on the other hand, technically, he was Ma'aseh, like he died, al Kedushas Hashem, to get him there for Shabbos. So they put him into what's called the Olam Hadimyan. The world is a fantasy world in Gan Eden. It's not this world, it's not Gan Eden. And in this world, they gave him 4 white horses, and they gave him a whip, and a beautiful carriage, and a gorgeous road, and a beautiful spring day, and he is just flying, no traffic, and no gas lines, no odd, no even, no nothing. You can just keep going, and it's mamish so geschmack, and there's like no restrictions whatsoever, and he's like king of the world. He feels so good about himself. So the Chidushei Arim said that, he was mispal a long time. His neshama should have a tikkun to get him out of that Olam Hadimyan, even though he was very happy there, and get him into. He should have his tikkun and get him into the real Olam Hab. So I remember this story, and a friend of mine reminded me that the Rabbi in yeshiva once said this story, and one kid picks up his hand, and he said, "Rabbi," the Rabbi said, "Yeah." He says, "How do I know that right now we're not on the Olam Hadimyan? Maybe you're not real. Maybe the class is not real. Maybe this is all, if there is such an imaginary world, maybe we're all in this Olam Hadimyan, in this imaginary world." Not a bad question for a 5th grader. So the Rebbe told him an amazing thing. He said, "Did anything not go your way today?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you sacrifice something for someone else? Did you give away a little bit nash for someone? Did you listen to your mother even though you weren't in the mood of listening? Did you keep your mouth closed when you were in the mood of saying something not nice and you didn't? Or did you say something when you weren't, did you daven when you weren't in the mood of davening?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Then you're not in the Olam Hadimyan." Because in the Olam Hadimyan, everything is exactly the way you want it. If life is meaningful, that's the Olam Hadimyan. The problems that we have in life, the daigas and the tzaras, are all adjustments in our life. The ups and downs, that shows us that we're real. A neurologist comes in sometimes, and one of the things they do, they test, they take this piece of metal, they touch your finger, and they say, "Do you feel it?" The little ups and downs in life, the bumps and the curves, is the Rabbi Shalom giving us a checkup. That the Rabbi Shalom letting us know that we're alive. In the Olam Hadimyan, there is no ups or downs, but it's not a world, it's not true happiness, it's a facade of happiness. This is a world where you can say, "What?" Scream at a kid for going to a baseball game or playing baseball, or you can say, "I have to take that cheshik and I have to try to turn it around, even if my own kavod may not be the greatest." There was a yid that was the Rosh Hashiva of Chabin, that he was nifter now. His name was Avram Ginakovsky, I think. And he was an amazing, amazing person. I heard this story firsthand from some people. They said that he used to sleep in the yeshiva by Shabbos. The Shabbos, Friday night, he came home. He lived in Bnei Brak, and there was an old man next to him, and this old man, he didn't always know which day of the week it was, and he came Shabbos morning and he rang his bell. So Rabbi Avram knew that he doesn't realize that it's Shabbos, but he was wearing already his Shabbos clothes, and if he's going to open up the door for his Shabbos clothes, the guy will realize it was Shabbos, and he rang the bell. So he quickly ran, got undressed, and put on his pajamas, and ran to open the door. So as not to embarrass the person, he shouldn't open up and realize that it was Shabbos. What did I do? I rang the bell. You can be a Rosh Hashiva 1,000 years, but when you put on your pajamas to not embarrass someone, that shows, it lifts the level of the Torah. It's just the level of Torah Lishma. He used to sleep in the yeshiva, and he woke up one morning and he found out that $2,000 was missing from one of his bank accounts, one of his drawers, bank accounts. And so he went out and he told the Bachurim that somebody asked him to give someone a loan of $2,000, and he procrastinated, he didn't do it. And this is Vadai the Einish. So he ran out, he said, "The first thing I want to do is borrow $2,000 from someone and give it to that person." That's an amazing insight. You say, "I should have given the tzedakah," but that's it. But you don't give the tzedakah now. Now for sure not, I lost the $2,000, right? Said he went out and he did it. He went out and he did it. I had an uncle, his name was Reb Simcha Kavalenko, Zecher Tzadik Levracha. And he went to Los Angeles, and he had in mind, he had promised to give a certain amount of money to yeshiva, a significant amount, and he had a robbery. He was a diamond merchant, and he stopped by a certain dealer in Los Angeles, and he went out, and he left the suitcase in the trunk, and he came back, and the suitcase was gone. Somebody obviously followed him from the airport. And the police came, And he said to him, the police took a report. He said, did you leave the car on, it was a very, very significant amount of money. I mean, probably more than the combined salary of many of us over here. And the policeman said to him, were you standing by the car when it happened? Did you see the guy grab it and run? So he said, no, I went into the store. So he said to him, do you mean you left the suitcase unattended in the car? He said, yeah. He says, mister, he says, listen, I'm just a cop. You know, I don't care what I write here, but you know you're not going to get a penny from the insurance company. So like, I wasn't here, just tell me what to write. He said, I told you what to write the truth. He says, all you have to say is you were standing here and someone grabbed it out of the car while you were standing here. He said, but that's not what happened. I left it in the car, he said. Hey, it's up to you, he said. He said there was that yeshiva bacher that went to, they would be drafted in the Israeli army, whatever's going to happen now. And he went in, he said, I'm not going to lie. They said, you're not going to get out, I'm not going to lie. So most of them, they come in, they say they're crazy, and they go, you make some kind of funny thing. So he came in, they said, are you normal? He said, yeah. He said, you're not Meshuggah? He goes, no. He goes, you wake up in the morning, you know where your socks are? Yeah. You get dizzy? No. He says, you ever get scared? No. He says, you're crazy. Go. He told me the truth, you're nuts, get out of here. You're in the army. So he lost all the money. And he went and he borrowed money from people and he said his intent was to sell the money for this, on the deal that he was going to make. He was going to make a significant income. And he already promised the Meiser or the Chaimish to a certain tzedakah in Los Angeles. He went and he borrowed the money to be able to give the Meiser anyway, even though he lost the money. He said, I made up to do it, why shouldn't I do it? Sometimes we get angry and frustrated, that's it, I'm finished. And sometimes we say, oh, Yetzer Hara. He says, the Yetzer Hara is not going to stop me from doing my mitzvahs. It's interesting, this Reb Simcha was nifter on Purim, the day of tzedakah. There's Levaya on Purim, so you're not supposed to make a spaden by Purim. No, it goes. Now to make a spaden today, we're not really making a hesp, we're just speaking about the nifter, we're just speaking about Ored you speak for 6 or 7 hours. So his son got up and just said the story. He said the story. So what more do you need? I mean, I can imagine how many malachim from this story were coming up to Shemayim on Purim. How we do one thing in our life that signifies who we are. So this Rabbi Ram, there are such Yidden on the world. They're real. It's MS. Not very often in our life do we get an opportunity of MS. So this Yid goes and he says, I want to borrow $2,000 and give it. Because that's why I lost the $2,000. Now you're down $4,000? No, but if you're looking for MS, Shkoich Menachem, if you're looking for MS, if you're not looking for excuses, right? And then he went ahead and he gave $500 for tzedakah, should be a kapara. They said, a kapara for whom? He said, for the Ganef. He said, you need a kapara for the Ganef? Yeah, he said, it's my fault that he stole. If I would have given that person the $2,000, so Hashem would have put it into my mind to lock the door. So because I didn't give the loan, so the $2,000 was lost, and that's why he was able to steal. He said, I need a kapara, I was machshel and a chait. That's how he was thinking. That guy found the money. Somebody once said, Loi signa if it's taich, don't find it. Everybody say, where'd you get the money? I found it. They say they brought a guy before a judge, they said, what's his chait? He said, Black Friday is coming up. They said he went shopping early. They said, for shopping early, you arrested him? He says, how early? He says, like an hour before the store opened, he was there shopping. There are times in our life where we say, I've had it. I have had it. He says, a fellow told me a story. He was taking these Dirshu tests. And he got back a mark that was a very bad mark, and he really felt that he did it. And he said, at the end, he straightened it out. It was a mistake. But at that moment, he said he wanted to close the Gemara. He said, I worked so hard and I got a wrong mark. He said, he said to himself, then what am I good for? Like he felt so cheap. So he said, he opened up the Gemara and said, I'm learning. Well, I'll get the mark. And he wound up doing the entire Shas with Dish. He said he feels that was his Nisayan. What gave him the Siyata D'Shema? He would have never believed he could take a Feher in the entire Shas. It was that moment that the Yetzer Hara tried to get him. You see? And on top of that, you flunked. I've had it. I'm finished. No. When you keep going, so if that didn't happen, he doesn't think he would have had the koiches to finish the entire Shas. And these are moments that happen in our life where we're so angry, I've had enough, I'm leaving yeshiva, I'm not going to try it down, I'm not giving tzedakah, I'm not, after this happens to me, forget it. I had a mind to give tzedakah and I had such a good neighbor, forget it. Just the opposite. That's the moment that if you pass this moment, emes keneva am timka, you're zeicha to something. This Rav Ganakovsky, I think, was the last day or the last 2 days of his life. He was in the hospital, Shmini Atzeres. And he was very distressed. And somebody came in, he asked him, what's the problem? The man is in such pain, and he knows he has hours left to live. He said, what's the shaila? No, shaila, what's the problem? A shaila, tzavah, the dairis, about dying, about Gehenna. What's the problem? He says that there's 2 people in the room, he and someone else. And they're davening Musaf Shmini Atzeres. And that person said, he can't daven. If you daven a lot, I'll daven after you. So he was already up to Musaf, and this person was up to Schachter or something. So he davened first, and he said already, Moirid HaGeshem. So he said, maybe I have a din of the Baal Tefillah, now this person has to really say Moirid HaGeshem by Schachter. So I'm not sure. Because once the Gabbai calls out Moirid HaGeshem, you have to say Moirid HaGeshem, and I'm the only other Gabbai in the room. So I don't know if this Yid's davening Shachris now. I don't know if he's supposed to say Merid HaGeshem or Merid HaTal. The doctors just told him he has 2 days to live, and he's crying, what do I tell this Yid? Merid HaGeshem or Merid HaTal? Never mind dying. Leave that up there. I got no problem with that. Whatever happens, happens. I want to know what to do. I want to know what Hashem wants me to do. So the Kli Yakar says that Esav said, Yikvu Yemei Evel Avi, can't wait. I can't wait for my father to die. And I'm going to go get Yaakov. Zok the Kli Yakar, why is he waiting for his father to die? Because otherwise Yaakov is learning Torah, and the Torah is going to protect him. But when he's an Aval, he can't learn, and then the Torah won't protect Yaakov, and Yaakov will be vulnerable, Esau will be able to kill him. Amen. People tell me if they don't hear the shahakal during the shir, they think I drank without a bracha, so I have to... Okay.
That's right.
So, right? So the Beis Yisrael asks the kasha on the Kli Yakar. He says, you're allowed to learn Torah when you're an Aval. You can learn Hilchas Avelus. You can learn Eiv. You can learn you can learn Mayit Cotton. You can learn other things. So the Beis Yisrael says, but you can't learn B'Simcha. Is a siman, the Torah that protects you is the Torah with Simcha. Not the Torah that's with Avel. So it was interesting. How did I get to do Dial Daf the first time? Like, who's me? Where did I come from? He said, well, one reason is that Eli Teitelbaum was saying Gesitten stark in Gan Eden. I can't believe he's not here. I'm telling you, he's up there. He's turning over worlds. He said, I don't care what anyone says. I want things that I think people are going to feel they understand the daf. So nobody wanted to do the Avelus daf in Moed Cotton. The daf in Avelus, nobody wanted to do. They were scared to do it. They said it's a bad omen if you do the brachas of Avelus. So I went to the Rachmas Rivka Rebbe, and I asked him, I said, I have this chance, but is there a problem with doing the Avelus? He said, the Torah does not hurt you. Not Hilchas Avelus, not Hilchas Purim, not Hilchas Chanukah, not Hilchas Pidyon Petach Hamar, there's no such thing. The Torah doesn't hurt you. So that was my step in. But that's what the Beis Yisrael says. He says Yaakov could have learned, man. Yaakov could have learned when he was an Aval, but it's not Torah b'Simcha. Torah b'Simcha. I don't care. I'm not angry. I'm not frustrated. Whatever happens, happens. We're going weiter. The Yid Rav Scheiner is ein gesunder stark. Rosh Hashiva and Torah Das many years. They gave him a ride home today. He told me a great story. He said he's giving a daf yomi shir 4 times Shas. He finished it. 4 times Shas. He finished. And when he prepares for this shir hours, you can imagine how he learned Shas. So how did the shir start? So he tells me 4 times ago, somebody gave the shir in the summer, and the guy had to leave. So he said, can you do the shir for me in the summer? He said, after the summer, the man came back. He said, I had a hard summer. Just continue saying. So he's saying 4 times Shas. I feel bad for the person that had the hard summer. Okay. How many times in our life do we say, I had a hard summer, just forget it? And you gave up 4 times Shas. I mean, never mind the person that said 4 times Shas. It's that hard summer that you're kind of Shas forever. That's how you prove you're not a robot. That's how you prove you're not on the Olam Adimian. So, there's a great story in Taiwan where there's a little village down below, And they have a flax field, and the flax field is up on the mountain. And during the week, most of the town goes up the mountain, and they live in little huts. And they come home for Shabbos or whatever, I don't know. They come home for whatever they come home for, I don't know. So the old man in Taiwan, he comes out, the old elder, with a little spitzbud, little two hairs coming out. And he's wearing the long robe with the stars on it, I don't know, whatever, little spectacles. He comes out and he looks at the ocean. He sees the ocean is acting strange from the top of the mountain. And they're looking at him and they say, well, I don't know how you say great-grandfather in Taiwan, but we got to work on the flax. What do you leave the ocean? What do you want from the ocean? He says, quickly bring me a stick and some fire. You bring him a stick and some fire, and he's holding the stick, and he says, they thought it's some ritual. He's going to ward off the bad gods. I don't know. He takes the stick and he starts lighting the flax fields. They said, what are you doing? This is our whole parnasa. He wants more sticks, and he's lighting it. Now, they have derech eretz for old people in Taiwan. This would have happened in New York. Taking the guy, in a second, it's burning. They said, we're not going to die of hunger. Meanwhile, all the people down in the village look up and go, look, the flax fields are going up in flames. They need help putting out the fire. The whole town grabs a bucket of water. They go running up the mountain. And that's when the tsunami hit. And they realized what he did, that by burning the flax field, he saved the entire town. You know how many times in our life, I forgot how these things work. You have to change the thing, right? Oh, okay. Yeah. Do a chesed. All right. I saw one on my Chalamai trip in the Museum of Natural History. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So, Akopanim. There we go. Oh, that's what used to happen to me. I remember that, right? See, I forgot that. It used to be such a simcha. I always used to press down the button 5 times, and when it finally didn't snap back, you don't have that simcha anymore. I'm telling you. This generation does not know what they're missing. He saved the entire town. How many times in our life a guy comes, I lost my job, my world went up in flames. The Rabbi Shalom just saved your life. I had to move, I had to relocate suddenly for one split second to the next. Yeah, the Rabbi Shalom just saved your life. Don't you realize that? That when there's a change in our personal life, the members of the ask a kasha, we've done this before. Yeah, but this old man had no way of stopping the tsunami. He could only warn the people to come running up. The Rabbi Shalom could just make the tsunami not come. The Torah says the Rabbi Shalom knows how to run this world. But there are certain tikkunim that we can be zoicha to only during a matzav where boom, our flax field is burning and we say, you know what? This is the Zayda, this is the Rabbi Shalom, the Melech, Malchei Amlachim that's doing this for a reason. That's the tikkun. The Karbrina once said, I heard this from Melech Biderman, he once was sitting with his Hasidim Friday night, and he said to them, Bridalach, my dear brothers, he says, you know what your Baba told you about Gehenna? He says, Suris, it's true. All the stories about Gehenna is true, but I want to tell you something. A Yid that during his rough times in this world had a munah in Hashem, that you should know the Malachi Chavola kick him out of Gehenna. So you're making us trouble here. Go away, goodbye. You're cooling off the fires. Go through a matzav in this world, and we're maimin in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we say, Rabbeinu Shalom, I flunked the test, my flax field is burning, I want to go on. You know that tonight is 4 years since the story with Mumbai? Exactly the art site. The pain, the tears, the families reliving. You know, the Yisayim that are growing up, it's a different tragedy every single year. Because a 5-year-old not to have a father is a different tragedy than a 6-year-old not having a father and a 9-year-old not having a father. That pain goes on. Look at Klal Yisrael. We have to say to ourselves that it changed us. 4 years ago, we were all shaken from that story. And there are a lot of things we need Rachmei Shemayim tonight, what's going on in Eretz Yisrael and what's going on all over. Right? You talk about a message. This is not a message. This is a clobbering on the head. But how did it change us? How did these events in the past change us? So Avram Avinu is nifter, and you have 2 diametrically opposing reactions. You have Esav that says, see, he doesn't pay to be a tzaddik, even he dies, may as well do what I want. And you see Yaakov who says, Avram Avinu was nifter, so I have the awesome achrayis of continuing on this legacy, and Avram is looking down at me. What an unbelievable kayach. Hanukkah is the kayach to move on. That's really what it's all about. If you know a little bit about history, we'll get into it a little bit more in the upcoming shiurim before Hanukkah, B'li Neder. Politically, the Chashmonaim were a disaster. Yeah, they became king, but they never really became king. The Greeks never really let go. And there was assassinations and double-crossing, and one generation later, forget about it. You had Aristobulus and Hyrcanus, two Chashmonoi brothers that were killing each other, and they went to... One of them had a great idea, we'll bring in the Romans on my side, my side of the Machlaikis. And they brought the Romans in, and they never left. Rabbi Wein always says, you bring in the bear to kill the mouse, but then how to get rid of the bear, right? The bear never left. What happened during Hanukkah was an amazing phenomenon. Reb Tzaddik talks about this. The Tkufas Tanoim started. Not only did the Tkuf of Tanoim start, Hillel and Shammai and so on, but until that point, the Sanhedrin were interwoven with the Malchus, Shimon ben Shetach, the king. They had to deal with the king. They had to make decisions. There was no way to separate the Malchus and the Kahuna, and then therefore it bogged them down. All of a sudden something happened. When the Chashmonoi house fell apart in their own internal strife, and then Hurdas came, and the Rod Chazal said, goodbye, do whatever you want. I'm going in the Beis Medrash, I'm opening a Gemara, I'm learning, I'm chazering, I'm crying, I'm davening, I'm signing baseballs, Rebbeinu Shalom, the world, you run the world. I can't do it anymore. I want to sit and learn. But as things change in the world, give me the siyata, the shemaya to know how to react. That was a change that took place in Hanukkah. And that was the real simchas of Hanukkah. I'll do mine. The Gemara is real. The world, that's just a setting. That's just it's a mirage. It's a play. It comes, it goes. The Shabbos table is real. The Sfasem says, Chanukah is Seifei Tevis, Nochain Liboy Betuach Bashem, Samach. Samach Liboy Le'yira, Adash Yira Betzarav. So the last letter is Nochain is a Nun, Liboy Betuach is a Ches, Shem is the Hey, Samach is a Chaf, is Chanukah. The koyach of Chanukah is, you can say, Rebbeinu Shalom, this world, I know nothing of this world. When they say Reuven borrows money from Shimon, then he borrows money from Levi, and then Levi comes running, I need the money, goes to Shimon, it goes to Shimon, and he goes to Levi. Finally he pulls Levi and Shimon together, he says, listen, you two keep giving each other the money, leave me out of this. The world, Rebbeinu Shalom, I don't know Republicans, I don't know Democrats, why is Gunish, I don't know, it's not up to me. I sit and learn. Rebbeinu Shalom, let me be the best person who I am. You run the world. You run the world. So Esav says, hey, there's devastation anyway. There's global warming. Tsunamis are going to destroy us. There's the Middle East. That's it. They're drafting Yeshiva Bachim. It's all over. It's all over. Someone told me he was in Ashdod today in the middle of a bar mitzvah. Everyone went running from the missiles, and the poor bar mitzvah boy is crying. He chazed for his chapel so long, as if that's the main problem here. But in his life, that is the main problem. The world is so sad. So Esav says, let me live it up. The world's gone anyway. And Yaakov says, let me live it up in a different way. I have to live up to who I am. I have to give shiurim. I have to take on the entire Shas. Rav Shach, Zechon Levracha, had a tshuvas Rabbi Akiva Eiger. He always kept it next to him, this tshuvas Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Because he said during the war he was hiding someplace. It was the only sefer that he had. He learned it from morning to night. It was the most precious sefer he had. The Skalena Rebbe, Zechon Levracha, when the Romanians came in to look for him, and they wanted to kill him at that moment, he was in the Ber Mayim Chaim's Beis Medrash in Chernovitz. Reb Chaim ran into a stender, the Ber Mayim Chaim stender, and they ransacked the entire Beis Medrash. They ripped it to shreds, ripped out the walls, pulled out the Svarim Shanks. It didn't occur to them to look into the stender. And the next time that he was arrested, he took a Ber Mayim Chaim with him, and he held it with him the entire time when he was in prison. And it was always very special to him to say for Ber Mayim Chaim on his yard side in Hanukkah. He always made a big tish. This is how where Esav would say, what? He's hiding in a horrible attic, and any second they could kill me. That's why I got Jewish I need now. Goodbye. What do I need this for? Rum dies anyway. And Yaakov has seichel to say, oh, is this Jewish Rabbi Akiva going to be precious? It's going to be the most precious sefer of my life. Oh, is this Ber Mayim Chaim going to be precious? The Yid one of the Rebbeim in Torah Das, he's older now, but he had there were certain years he had Mishunadik Hatzlacha with his class. Nobody could figure out how he had Hatzlacha. He had classes that were like, boom, a bunch of people with those baseball caps. They were like, forget it. There were no Gedolim on their baseballs. And he was so matzliach. And once he told me a story. That he was in Poland, so Poland was divided. Nazis half, at the beginning Russians the other half, and Hitler and Stalin were going to live happily ever after. That lasted about a day. So at the point when he was on the Russian side, so the Russians came by, And the Russian said, listen, you want Russian citizenship? You know, you're a Russian citizen. What else could you have? What could be greater than that? Nothing could be greater than that, yeah. So his father said, and some other Yidden said, I'm not taking Russian citizenship. I become a Soviet citizen. That's the end of my Torah, end of my Yiddishkeit. And others said, no, you better take it. If not, they're going to give you something else. So his father didn't take it. The next day, the KGB, whatever it is, the NKVD, whatever, they swooped in and swooped him up, and they sent him off to Siberia, him and his entire family. And everyone said, you know what you do? You should have taken the citizenship. He said, it would have been the end of my Yiddishkeit. Now it's the end of you. He said they were taken deep, deep into Siberia. They were in a wooden house, no heat, no electricity, no water, and that was without a hurricane, and there was no one to complain to. There was no fiscal cliff over there. It was a permanent residence hanging off the cliff. So he said his father found out that there's a Yid that has 2 pages of a Siddur, Shemus. And he gave whatever money he had to buy bread for those 2 pages, and he sat the whole day teaching his kids Ivra. I said, you want to know why you have a kayach, why you open a Gittin Gemara, and kids that have no shaykhs to learning go, wow, that's Toyson's kasha, that's geschmack, let me write this down, that's your father's kayach, that's the kayach of that Siddur. Then you want to know why the Shach is the Gadol Ador, you want to know why this Kalana Rebbe, you know, Chassidim all over, the most respected than anyone else, that's Ber Ma'im Kayim. It's that Gemara in your life on the worst, most frustrating day, you want to say, I've had it. No, throw it away, this is the Gemara that's going to make you L'Doiris. The Dairis forever after. He said afterwards they were transferred to some village out of the woods. They went into a guy named Stefan, who was a diehard communist. He woke up every morning. He would say, "Moida ani lefanecha Stalin, shechazarta bi nishmasi Stalin." And you give us. He was a whole nusach. They said, you give us bread, you give us milk, you give us food. The only kasha he had, he didn't see any bread, he didn't see any milk, he didn't see any food. He doesn't know what Stalin was giving him exactly. He said, and then so he had a house, so he had 2 rooms, so they pushed the family into the other room. What do you need an extra room for? That's not, you don't give it away to Mother Russia. Then they brought another guy, Ivan, and they put him into his room. They said, you have a second bed in your room. He said, this Ivan, his father would want to make Kiddush, and every time he would take 2 pot covers, father would secretly make Kiddush. When he got to Mekadosh HaShabbos, he probably made it on a piece of challah, and I doubt there was wine, he would go bang, bang. They had that every Friday night, they had music. His father took a job as a night watchman, because he shouldn't have to be Mechal Shabbos. This Stefan had a huge dog. He said one day he went out to work. It was Friday night, and the dog started following him. He said, Simonish Git. And he realized maybe the dog thinks he's the owner. I don't know. So he sat down on his tree stump over there freezing. In the middle of the night, the dog starts barking, and he sees 2 intruders running away. Yeah, they thought the dog was going to come. This guy's coming after them with the dog. If those 2 intruders would have gotten into the stockpile, then the Soviets would have shot him right there. So, go figure out the Mesiras Nefesh that Klal Yisrael had. This Yid, you know, as a son-in-law, thousands of people listened to his shiurim. The Hatzlacha that he had. This is that Siddur. If you're sitting here tonight and you're a Shomer Torah Mitzvahs, you had a grandfather or a grandmother that had such a Siddur, that had such a Chuvas Rabbi Akiva, that had such a Ber Ma'im Chayim. And you owe it to your children to do the same for them. Famous from Shlomo Hyman, the famous story, there was a snowstorm once. There were only 2 kids in his shir. He was screaming, he used to scream. They said, there's only 2 of us. I said, who are you screaming at? He said, I'm talking to you, I'm talking to your children, I'm talking to your grandchildren, I'm talking to your great-grandchildren. You close the computer and you come to Seder at night. That's not for you, that's for your children. Now, Parshas told us, the school of Parshas told us, Sheit Nesvarim, is this in you that you connect to your grandfather and you connect to your children. The Medrash begins, Ela told us, Yitzchak ben Avram, and Parshas told us is the only Parsha where Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are all alive simultaneously, at the same time. Parshas told us every stop by Parshas told us is bracha. And if you look at the Medrash at the beginning of Parshas told us, the Medrash continues this theme again and again. Mishi yesh lo ben, that learns Torah, he has rachmim. B'niyim chacham libecha yismach libi gamoni. And emes knei, emes. Try to be who you are. V'al timkar chachma musarabina. Because if you are who you are, you connect to your grandfather and grandmother's chuvas of Bikivega, to her shemus. And it goes over to the schus of your children. And it goes on to say that Avram Avinu was saved from Ur Kasdim only in the schus of Yaakov. What does that mean? Yaakov had a bechira. What if Yaakov wouldn't have been good? That means we have an awesome responsibility. Because I think it's so clear in this generation, any Yid that's here, your grandfather went through a nest. There's no Yid nowhere in the world that 80 years ago didn't go through a nest to be alive. And maybe that's because of you. Just like Avram was saved from Mir Kazdim because of Yaakov, how do you know the reason your great-grandfather wasn't saved is not because of you? Not because of you. I had one of my son-in-law's grandmother. She was together with my mother in the concentration camps. We figured that out. They went through an X-ray machine. They were looking for TB. My mother had a tad of it. So she saw what was going to happen. The Germans' treatment for TB was to put a bullet through your head. So she pushed her aside and she went through the X-ray machine. Twice. So I'm so naive. You know, just to show you how naive we are. When I told her, when I once asked her, you did that, weren't you exposing yourself to more radiation? She looked at me like, exposing myself to radiation? So the Germans, they would have caught me going around. I wouldn't have been alive. I would have been dead before I hit the ground. The radiation I was thinking about. I had to save lives. Weren't you scared? If I wasn't going to do that, I had no reason to live. That's what gave me the life. She saved many, many lives, this woman. And to think that now there's grandchildren, right, from this saving lives. Do we know Kadosh Baruch Hu's cheshbon on future generations? Do you know that the next Nisayon you have is the reason that your grandfather survived the war? What does it look like to your grandfather in Shemayim? Say, hey, I took you out of your Kazdim, I took you out of the war because of your grandfather. What's with your grandfather now? Right? So Rivka's walking, and she walks by Avodah Zarah, boom, 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 the baby wants to get out. She walks by the shul, boom, 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 the baby wants to get out. She's very worried. What was she worried about? All the Svarim say she was scared this is one mixed up kid. You know, when he wants to be a Democrat and a Republican. I'm not going to say which one is the Avodah Zarah. I'll leave that up to you. You want it this way and that way. Yeah, I want to tell you, one of the Rabbanim, I forgot who spoke by the Yasifa for raising money for Seagate. He said a story about a family that was going, someone that was, I think, an eye doctor, and he grabbed his family. He stayed, and they got into the car, and they were in his rearview mirror. He saw the water climbing up, and he stepped on the gas, and he said he realized at that moment this car is either going to save his family or they're going to drown in their car. And somehow, like they were able to beat the wave that crashed down behind them, that would have totally wiped out his family. He was described that moment of sheer terror, how his life depended on this car. I'm glad it was his car, you know. His car saved his life. Let me tell you what that Rav didn't say last night, because he didn't know this part of the story. But somebody came over to me today, and he said, I'll tell you the other part of the story. He said, my brother's wife was not well. And she was at a hospital an hour and a half away from Seagate. And she was Nebuch on her last days. And a nuisance, her eyeglasses broke. Go, you know, in the ICU there, go fix her eyeglasses. So when she said, he mentioned to his neighbor on top of all of his other tzaros that his wife's eyeglasses broke, he took off a day of work. He drove an hour and a half to the hospital with his clay machshir and with his tools, fixed her eyeglasses, made her a new pair, and drove an hour and a half back with that same car. I want to ask you, which car saved his life? You want to know why the car saved his life? Do we know what we do when we're not in the mood of doing that saves our life years later? You know why Yaakov was called Yaakov? Because what was the point? Esav is born, and Yaakov says, oh no, you're going to be the B'char. Come back here. He's born already. Once his head comes out, he's the B'char. What are you reaching out to pull him for? Well, what are you pulling him? It's too late. Saktakaska, that's what Yaakov teaches us. Because the Yetzer Hara says it's a loss. It's gone. I'll never learn. I'll never learn. I should be able to take a fair and 30 block Gemara. I should daven. Forget it. It's gone. It's gone. My Parasha, Machshava, Shmiras, and I'm. Forget it. You try. I don't care how much of the Yetzer Hara was born. You try. You get out there. Go daven. The Ksav Sefer says a davar pella. He says Rivka was worried. Hey, this kid, Avodah Zarah, Avodah Zarah. Torah, you know? He says there are people that can learn Torah and they run to Avodah Zarah. So V'telech Lidrus Hashem, she ran to daven. Because if you cry your heart out by a Shmon Esrei, you can't go to the Avodah Zarah afterwards, says the Ksav Sefer. There are people that may look from a Blat Gemara, they may run there. But if they're crying their heart out, then the Torah has to be Torah L'Shema. So, you know, there's a Gemara, the Gemara says, we learned it in Brachis. Those learning that. A person should always walk when you come into daven. Should walk 2 doorways. What is 2 doorways? What's 2 doors? So there's different shatim in the Rishonim. Some say it's a shir and zman. How long does it take to walk the distance of 2 doorways? 4 amos. When you walk in, don't start davening Shemon Esrei, running in. Take it easy, stop. Negartel, Shmon Esrei. Right. Okay, Hashem, start. Take a minute to see what you're doing. Some say 2 doorways means, I don't want you to stand next to the door. But you shouldn't be davening next to a window or a door where you're davening and you're looking out to see what's going on the street. Some Rishonim hold 2 doorways means you shouldn't daven next to the door, because it looks like as soon as davening is over, you want to rush out. It's not a covered for the davening. Some say, Al Pi Kabbalah, when you daven over here, you open up doors Lamaila. I want to suggest a different shot. It says, Yaakov and Esav were out for the brachas. This was very tough. This was the toughest Nisayon for Yaakov, who had to go against his very mitzias and be mevatel the emes and lie and put on a strange suit, like he said, in order to be able to steal the b'chayra. But he had to do it. So it was a stira to his mitzias. You know what this was for Yaakov? This was Yaakov signing the baseball. Imagine you have a Rosh Hashiva that says, I'll say shiurim, sign the baseball. No. Das nicht. Right? I'm Yaakov. Midas emes. I'm emes. What? Klal Yisrael needs me to disguise as Esav and risk my life? That's not my covenant. No, I can't do that. I don't do such things. Right? So you're not emes. Emes is when you're willing to give it all up. Is if you see, that's what the Parasha wants. The Parasha wants me to say shir, I say shir. The Parasha wants me to sign the baseball, I sign the baseball. Yaakov is emes because when emes meant take a chance with your life and hide like Esav is willing to, I'll do what I have to do, what the Rebbe wants me to do. That shows that his Torah was Torah L'Shma. That shows that all the years that he was Yaakov Ishtam Yoshev V'Yaholim, that the Sarfei Ma'am that were created by Yaakov Avinu's Torah keeps us alive to this very day. So, it says that Esav is trying very hard to get the food. And Esav was having a lot of trouble. Every time he caught a goat ran away from him. Finally, he caught a dog. And he cooked it up, and he's going to bring it to Yitzchak. And he walked in just as Yaakov was walking out. So the Medrash describes there was a double door. That Yaakov walked out from one side, Esav walked in from the other side, and as the door in and out, like in the comedy skits, you bump into each other, like in the way they walked out, they missed each other by a millisecond. Had Esav been a second later, or Yaakov been a second early, and they would have come face to face, Esav would have finished off Yaakov. You know how many times in our life, after 120 years, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to show us, you know how close you were to death? You know how close you were to losing it? That it was a double door? That I arranged that you should be there a second before or a second afterwards? And you couldn't be there, and you said, what's going on? Why is it taking so long? Why am I stuck on the train? Why isn't this working? Why is it taking so long for my wife to get out of the house? Why doesn't the car start? Do you know how many times in your life I saved you? You know how many times the blood rushing through your heart was a millimeter away from getting clogged and I opened it? You know how many times in our life we go through the double doors? We're going to come up after 120 years and we're going to say to Hashem, why did I go through all this tzaras in my life? And the Rabbi Hashem is going to say, you went through tzaras? I'll show you 1,000 times. Or Esav walked out, Yaakov walked in, and you would have been off by a second, you would have been killed. And that's why it says when you come into daven, you daven with 2 doors. You say, I don't know what's going on in my life. The Rabbi Hashem is the one that's saving my life. He knows what's happening. A friend of mine, Rabbi Yonason Tendel, was ein gesund. In Stark and Seagate, he told me he was there, and he was standing there, he saw a Yid. He was davening Karbonis. When he came to the words, Baruch HaMakadosh Shemoy B'Rabim, he burst into tears. He said to him, I heard people crying by Roi Fechel Yam Yisrael, by Baruch HaMakadosh Shemoy B'Rabim. He says, look around. He said, Yidden from Satmar, Yidden from Baltimore, Yidden from Square, Yidden from all over, in big boots and gloves, helping us clean out garbage and sewage. This isn't Makadosh Shmoi B'Rabim. He says, you know what I did? I started crying with him. I said, you're right. I said, you're right. You're right. And then he told me one more story which I'll share with you. You know, the kids, my kids, I was giving a share to some kids, someplace, whatever the case may be. Now, I don't know what they're watching. But one of them said, hey, Rabbi, you heard about this movie? I don't know. Tomorrow, the day after, something like that. I said, what? Tomorrow, the day after. I said, what's tomorrow, the day after? So you don't know what it is, Rabbi? I said, yeah, I'll tell you what it is. I said, in Yeshiva, we had a cook. Whenever we got bread, fresh bread, he put it in the freezer. He was a Mechumayid, you know? He only took it out a week later, and we never had fresh bread. So we once said to him, when are we going to get today's bread? He said, tomorrow. That's what I remember. No, it's a movie about a tsunami that took full over New York. It was so scary. I said, I got enough real problems. Like, why are you making more problems than they are? You know what I mean? I said, there's enough problems in your life on a day-to-day basis that are really happening. If you understand. You open up a siddur. So there's a yeshiva, or different groups of people took kids that were struggling in different ways, and they brought them to Seagate to help with the cleanup, and kids were helping. So he tells me, and he saw this with his own eyes, that there was Sifrei Torah and Svarim that were, I think that's to think about also. There were so many Svarim that were destroyed. It's such a kitrik, so many Sifrei Torahs, that the way to deal with that is that we learn more. We take the Svarim that we have and we use them more. I mean, there can't be a greater tikkun mida connected mida. So he says this kid literally goes scuba diving, and he pulls out from underneath somewhere a totally waterlogged, soaked Kiddushin Gemara, a Shas Gemara. Now, Oiz v'Hadar Kiddushin Gemara. That's like it's dripping. And the kid is like, he was gasping for air. He had to get this Gemara. And he goes over to the owner, and he says, I know it's worth a Shavah Prut, and he says to him, and his mom is like wiping, it's hard to tell if it's a tear or it's the water dripping from him. He goes, can I take this Gemara with me? He says, yeah, but what are you going to do with it? He goes, we're learning Kiddushin. He says, I came into this year, I said, I'm finished. I don't know what's going on. I give up. He says, I just risked my life for this Gemara. He says, I have a feeling that if I learn in this Gemara, I'm going to learn. He told him, take the Gemara, take the whole Shas, take it with you. In our lives, there's going to be a time we're going to open up our Gemara, it's going to be so soaked with tears. We decide then if we're Esav, and we say, what's the point? Or if we're of Shachs, Shuvas, Rebbe Kiva Ega, the Skolanulei, Rebbe's Berim Mayim Chayim, or maybe that kid's Kiddushin Gemara. If we do, then we can say Ariyat Mekadesh, Liya Kadosh Baruch Hu says it to us, and we say it to him.